shoulders, done with my cigarette. And when all the smoke is clear, I'm brushing away for you, the weight for you, the weight for you. Don't need another man. Tell me you're no good. I'm brushing away to you, the weight of you, of my shoulders. Done with my cigarette. And when all the smoke is clear, I'm brushing away for you, the weight for you, the weight of you. Don't need another man.
Right here, standing by your side. Open up your heart and let me in. I promise not to break you. I promise I'll be all that you want. So let me in my heart before. Let me in. Oh, your love explodes. Our hearts implodes. Your love explodes. Our hearts
Okay, you know what? Whatever. It's fine. Doing this, I was trying to do something else, but it's fine. Firstly, I'm putting this in chat. Okay. That is a link to a Google Doc that we made about reasons that people fake claim DID systems, specifically on FDC. But I think it will apply to this as well. So I will be linking that in the description of the VOD as well. Firstly, before any of this, do not harass or attack or even go to the pages of the people who have been making these videos or who are in these videos. Harassment will not be tolerated. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter if you disagree with them. It doesn't matter if they insult. It doesn't matter. Don't go to anyone's pages. People should not be harassed simply for making videos. And I stand by that. So I have a few videos pulled up. This is going to be a longer stream. Just going to be talking about what they might have gotten wrong or misunderstood or just misinformation in general. I'm not going to be speaking on these people as people. I'm not going to talk about their personalities. I'm not going to talk about what I think of them. Strictly the information that they are putting out into these videos. Going to reiterate, do not attack or harass anyone. If I find out that people have been using this stream or the VOD to harass these people, you will be immediately blocked and banned from this community, from our page. Okay. So this video is firstly from Michelle Manna, I think is how you pronounce the last name. I have not seen any of these videos, so I'm going in completely blind, and we're just going to see what they say and talk about it.
I'm not here to try to convince you that self-diagnosis is right or wrong, but rather share my opinion and shed some light on the topic. Yes, welcome back, my manatees. Like, what? I came up with this name. I can't believe you guys didn't vote for Man Nation. Get it? Like Michelle Manna. Controversial topic of self-diagnosis.
I will probably be skipping around in these as well. I'm not going to speak on anything besides DID.
Cheese.
It's under the sauce.
There's no cheese on it.
It's under the sauce.
Like, I'm Italian and this is hurting me.
It's from Chicago.
But
Here is your daily reminder that autistic people that are anti-self-diagnosis are that way because of
Self-diagnosing. The diagnosis for dissociative identity disorder is very self-diagnosed. Some might genuinely want to further their healing journey. Others might want to justify behaviors without a desire for change or accountability. What comes to my mind is that it kind of depends on what you're self-diagnosing. The diagnosis for dissociative identity disorder is very complicated, so the self-diagnosis of it, I can imagine, would also be very complicated. Some people might be in denial of their trauma history, which is essential for a self-diagnosis. It can be difficult in this way because you might have repression and dissociation. In some cases of dissociative identity disorder, your brain is like, I actually cannot deal with.
That is actually correct. So, I personally believe that self-diagnosis is valid if you are unable to get a professional diagnosis, and if, and only if, you have done an extensive amount of research. It's not just seeing a couple videos and going, okay, I have that. It's months and months, and in some cases years of research and self-discovery. But yes, with DID specifically, and probably other disorders as well, DID is created because a child is put into very traumatic situations that they feel like they cannot deal with, and they can't survive knowing about it. Which is why it can take a while for people to be diagnosed with this disorder.
This information that I'm receiving, and so I'm going to literally split myself off into another person. For some,
That part is somewhat incorrect. So, the most widely accepted theory currently for how DID forms is the theory of structural dissociation. And that theory says that everyone is born with multiple ego states. So, one for if you're really, like, happy or tired or you need food, things like that. And as you grow and develop and experience the world around you, those ego states merge into your kind of core personality around the ages of between 7 and 9, I believe is what most people say. But after DID is developed, new alters can split with new stress or trauma. Completely depends on the system's stress threshold and what they can tolerate. So yes, in that case, later on in life, systems can split more. But for DID, when it's created, that would be incorrect.
some people, this is why you might not have great communication with your alters at the beginning stages of therapy. On top of that, you might believe you have DID because you are dealing with symptoms of either being a person or a different disorder. I will say that it is an actual symptom of DID to be in denial, but on the faker side of the community, you can see people actually convincing themselves that they have it because they might act one way here or another way here, or just have different moods throughout the day. But I will admit that that is a pretty large assumption. I don't know these people or what's going on inside their head.
I do appreciate that she did say that she doesn't know any of the people that she speaks about, so she doesn't know what goes on inside their head. And I want to make a note. TikTok especially, and anywhere on the internet, it's a very small section of someone's life that they decide to put out there. You can edit videos, you can choose to post things or not post them. So in a lot of cases, you only see what people want you to see.
There's a huge stigma with dissociative identity disorder that makes it very complex to self-diagnose with. But then there are some cases when you genuinely do have DID, you're just undiagnosed with it. But you have all of this misinformation on the internet about fun alters, and so you convince yourself that you don't have this. Meanwhile, there might be communities online that can actually be very helpful in you understanding your symptoms. They might have these forums where it's like, okay, do you ever notice that things might not be where you thought you put them, or, you know, you might be buying things that you don't remember buying. So in this way, I definitely want to emphasize that it is very different for each person, and it's kind of hard to know without a diagnosis, but I do understand that diagnosis can be very difficult for some people for various reasons.
The thing with diagnosis is, in the United States especially, the United States does not have universal health care. So everything is insanely expensive, even with insurance. And then on top of that, trying to even find a doctor who will listen to you. If you are assigned female at birth, there is a lot of misogyny in the medical space. There's a lot of racism in the medical space as well. So on top of just financial issues, if you were born and assigned female at birth, or if you are not white, that could contribute immensely to whether or not you can even get a diagnosis.
On top of financial difficulties, there can also be stigma placed upon these disorders, and it can make it harder to do things in life. Have you ever been to the doctor and you tell them, hey, I googled this and I think I have this, and they're just like, I'm not a doctor, but there's a chance that they're just like, oh, are you also a doctor? Okay, so you are also a doctor. How do you know that you're not being objective? Or, oh, you're not a doctor. The internet provides a wealth of information. Not all sources are accurate or reliable. Are you focusing on information that confirms your suspicions of having a particular mental illness and overlooking other possible explanations? Do you understand that mental health conditions are complex and multifaceted, often requiring a comprehensive assessment by a qualified mental health professional for an accurate diagnosis? And online self-diagnosis might oversimplify or overlook important factors that contribute to mental health symptoms. I do want to say that cyberspace can be a place for people to discuss their struggles and
I don't know why she chose to use that video. Specifically, especially because it didn't, in my opinion, it did not seem to have anything really, I guess, relevant, but that may not have been the entire video. There was no caption shown. I'm going off of what I saw. But doctors can be extremely biased for the reasons I already stated. I'm not going to go into how to self-diagnose or anything. I already stated what I needed to. And I don't see anything in this video that I need to really cover anymore for this one. Okay. So this next one is from Don Stever. I think I'm going to react to 2 videos by this creator. Just to reiterate, do not send any hate or harassment or anything to these people. This stream and the VOD is just firstly, my opinion as someone who lives with DID and just trying to correct misinformation, see what they're saying, what they may have misunderstood, or just have been misinformed about.
YouTube, what's up, Donarchy? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got a special guest once again. We are with Beans. Hey, what's up, Beans?
What's up, everybody? It's Beans.
Oh yeah, if you guys don't know who Beans is, Beans suffers from
Brain damage.
Just give him a quick
no.
look. Oh.
Not brain damage.
Overview.
Yeah, sure. I'm Beans. I'm 18. I'm a college student and streamer, and I have Tourette syndrome.
Today, we're gonna be going over fake disorder cringe subreddit. We've done multiple videos on this. Most of these videos are legit. Usually they give like proof and all that type of stuff. But then again, just because somebody's faking this disorder doesn't mean that you should, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like, just because someone is like appearing to fake a disorder doesn't mean you should go harass them. And just because you think one person is faking disorder doesn't mean you can like just see someone who you think might be faking a disorder and go harass them, because you don't ever really know for sure.
They bring up a good point there. But I think they're also missing that they don't know for sure if any of these people are actually faking.
Sure.
What Zizum said. Yeah, so let's get into this
Get into my ass and swim around. I'm sorry.
Trigger warning, takes trigger warning Tourette's. Alright, let's check out this video right.
Alright, so what are the comments on this one? Like, what's the kind of like
Yeah, let's see what other
situation
people
with
have to
this
say about
person?
this. Kind of disgusting that only one of them takes.
One of them takes a shower.
So in a lot of systems, and in ours specifically as well, there are specific alters who do specific things. Like caretakers especially, external caretakers specifically will usually do things like make sure that the body is clean, make sure that the body is eating, make sure that the physical needs are taken care of. That's not an uncommon thing. And just because it's only one alter doing it doesn't mean that the rest of them don't do things like that. I'm finding it really difficult to follow the logic that is in that comment specifically.
Can you imagine, like, you like treat your kid well, right? You don't give them any responsibilities or shit. Like, you know they stressed out, so you just kind of let them like relax all day and shit, and then you look online and they're faking DID.
So DID is caused by severe repeated childhood trauma before the ages of 7 to 9, around there. A lot of people with DID were traumatized due to their caretakers when they were younger. So in my opinion, saying that is really insensitive, because just because someone seems to have a good life when you're on the outside looking in, it doesn't mean that that's actually their experience and what's happening, especially behind closed doors.
That'd be crazy. What? When they say I want to see other people, have you met the alters?
So do you know what this trend is usually? It's usually like someone will do like different cosplays or like costumes. So like the joke is like the person they're dating wants to see other people, but they can just be other people. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I never thought about that in the context of a DID joke, personally. Get out of my
Dino.
house. Rara XD, I guess.
Alright. Noah.
Is that a tattoo? Where did that come from?
I don't know. It could be real.
I guess they were wearing short sleeve before, so I guess we wouldn't know.
Right. Now this
Oh
one.
yo, what are you doing wearing my
V.
man's Stitch, bro?
E.
As in V from like BTS?
Gray. I'm kind of speechless on this one. Kinda
You're speechless?
Yeah, like I don't know what to say.
I cosplayed once at a con, doesn't mean that I have DID.
FDC in itself is, in my opinion, extremely damaging because of the misinformation that it spreads. And in my opinion, I believe it is targeted harassment, what they post there. We have been posted there, I think, 2 or 3 times when we still had TikTok. I know that when we made our video addressing FDC specifically, someone had posted that video to FDC. Which is fine because that's what that video was for. We wanted that video specifically posted there, so it's very good that someone did post that. But I think FDC, their intentions, I think when the subreddit was first created, their intentions were good. But it's gotten to a point where it is just targeted harassment, fake claiming over the smallest things that can be researched, that have been noted in medical documents.
Guys. Yeah, this is kind of reminding me of that one person we saw before who was like saying that cosplaying or that TikTok was made for people with DID because it was made for cosplayers. I have to wonder with this one if they're saying that they actually switched to all of these people or if they're just like dressing up as each of their different alters for this video. Like, what is the situation with that?
No, I do not. You're done. You're done. I do not drive.
No, it doesn't feel like she's just copying everyone else, but then at the same time, you don't know.
Beans has spoken.
Brain damage.
Why did you do that? Because I can't. No more. No more.
Okay, this is
I'm
another.
sorry, but this looks like me taking an acting class when I was like 8 or some shit.
This is another DID one. I guess in this one there are 3 alters actively speaking to each other, going in and out. If you can see, she almost like, you see that hook right behind her? Yo, what if in the off chance your head?
So I don't know the context of that video at all. I'm just going off of what I'm seeing. But alters can be co-conscious and co-fronting, which means that multiple alters are essentially in the body, controlling the body at the same time. That's not an uncommon experience for systems. Sometimes dissociation can make you like fall over. Like your motor skills kind of deteriorate when you dissociate sometimes.
Head hit that. That's like dangerous as shit.
That's mad. It looks like they like felt it and then like kind of moved to the side a little bit.
Probably, yeah.
It also is interesting to me that like they dissociate to switch, right? But then like all this random really quick fire switching happens, but there's no dissociation with that.
Right.
Dissociation can go unnoticed. Like if you're on the outside looking in at someone, sometimes people will dissociate and you would have no idea. Because dissociation can be where the world around you doesn't feel real or you don't feel real, which is UPDR. Or it can be a lot more noticeable. And also, if there are alters who have decent communication, who are co-fronting or co-conscious, they don't need to have full switches to communicate with each other like that. And also, rapid switching does happen. It's a very common experience in systems.
Like it's just inconsistent.
Guys, before we watch this, trigger warning takes, trigger warning Tourette's, trigger warning black person, trigger warning beans. We have another DID one here.
This video was used in the McLean video. Sometimes it is easier to switch if you do put your head down. Some systems have disorders like POTS where they faint and they switch in that when they're passed out. And sometimes dissociation can make you kind of just drop. It's not an unheard of thing.
Yeah. Trigger warning, trigger warning. Alright, let's check it out. We're a DID system. This is what some switches look like for us. Fronting. Alright. Starts to disassociate. No one in the body.
There can be no one in the body?
Did
I can only speak for our system. In our system, there always has to be someone fronting. There can't just be no one. But that doesn't mean that other systems can't have a different experience. I can't speak on that.
dead? Like,
Yeah, like isn't that just death? Is it really switching if like there's no one in the body? Isn't that just possession?
It's been... There's been... How do I want to phrase this? In the past, people have said that DID is just possession. Especially in religious groups. They'll say that, oh, you're possessed by a demon, and that can contribute to religious trauma. I know that they're reacting to the videos, and they're just trying to make light of it. But in my opinion, it's insensitive to make jokes like that. Especially with the history of DID and how people have seen it.
Guess the player.
What?
What did they say at the end there? Guess the player? What is this, random fucking heroes or some shit?
But no one in the body. I've never heard that one before. Family acts for dinner. No one in the body.
They are doing all of this extremely quietly.
Probably don't want their parents to find out they doing this bullshit on it.
Again, with the parent comments, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. Someone's parents could be extremely abusive or be putting their children in extremely traumatic and abusive situations. Parents are not always a good and positive thing. As much as many people would like to believe that everyone's parents are perfect and don't do things like abuse their children, it happens much more than people like to believe.
Internet, bro.
Morgan, what in the fuck?
Yeah, bro. Yo, what I don't understand though, like, what's the whole obsession with wanting to fake these disorders and stuff like that? Like, me personally, I really feel like there's gotta be, like, this has to be some type of disorder within itself. It has to be.
There are disorders where people feel the need to pretend or fake having something. I think it's called malingering and also Munchausen's. There might be other terms for it or more specific phrases. I'm not exactly sure. But from what I have researched, those disorders are much rarer and much less common than DID.
Have you ever heard of Munchausen syndrome, or?
Of what?
It's essentially like a disorder where you fake disorders. There's actually another subreddit we could look through. So essentially, what this subreddit is, it's like a little bit more like severe than the stuff we were looking at before. These are people who like dedicate their whole platform to these chronic illnesses that they have. Usually, a lot of people will fake things like we've seen, like Tourette's, like DID, things that like are very hard to medically prove. We see a lot of people on TikTok faking things like Tourette's, DID, because they're very hard to medically prove. But you also get, specifically with people 20 to 40 is the range that this typically happens, is people intentionally making themselves ill in order to be in the hospital, in order to get things like amputations even, like going that far to have something wrong with them so that they can gain attention. And it's literally like a whole disorder in itself to fake all of these disorders for attention. Yeah, these people faking things like DID and Tourette's could have some form of this, potentially.
So she did do a pretty good job at explaining what Munchausen's is. But again, as far as I've seen in my own research, Munchausen's is rarer than DID. And saying that it's... I think she said it was not really possible to figure out if someone is faking DID in like the medical like community, but that isn't the case. There are signs and symptoms of someone who's faking DID, who, if they went to a professional to try and get a diagnosis, for example, there are different tests that they can do.
Which is like really, really worrying.
Wait, what is MCAS?
MCAS? I'm not sure. Let's look it up. MCAS is a condition in which the patient experiences repeated episodes of the symptoms of anaphylaxis or allergic reactions.
You're not gonna applaud me for that? It's fine. I'll just take it to the internet then.
Do you not
No,
hear my fucking applause, bro? Do you not hear my applause?
I didn't hear your applause.
I was fapping hard as fuck.
Hey, yo!
You would not believe that my PCP remembered what I told him about Hope faking everything. He brought her up again, so I was able to show him the most recent video of her where she's like all, you know, yeah, good times.
I'm assuming, so she said that she showed her doctor a video of somebody that is faking, hear the sound, my BPD takes over and my crazy yards are
Once I stop recording, what the fuck are we gonna do?
Bro, they're spreading everything to animals now, bro. It's crazy.
My
that's
hamster
kinda
is
funny, though.
coming out of the closet. Today, my hamster will be choosing.
Which drives me crazy because firstly, you don't self-diagnose DID.
And whatever the heck this person just did.
If you go on TikTok at the moment, well, there seems to be a huge amount of people saying that they've self-diagnosed DID, which drives me crazy because firstly, you don't self-diagnose DID. It's a very complex mental health condition. Secondly, it's highly unlikely that you'll even know that you're suffering from it.
Couple of things already. It is possible to self-diagnose DID, like I said at the beginning. But also, I don't like the argument that people make that if you have DID, you wouldn't know about it. Because if that was the case, then no one would know DID existed in general. It would not be in the DSM. It would not be a diagnosable disorder. No one would know it exists.
And most importantly, the idea that you can dress up and introduce people on TikTok to your alters is just plain bollocks.
Some alters in some systems have their own, like, clothing items and ways that they like to present themselves to make themselves feel more comfortable. That does not mean that someone is faking. It just means that that alter is doing what they want to do and doing what they feel is right to make them more comfortable. It doesn't mean that they're faking.
Yeah, she said it all perfectly. Like, it's that simple. It's that simple.
Yeah, like the thing is, like, the thing that really sucks about it is because, like, me personally, I always want to, like, believe people when they say that they're suffering or that they're having, like, something going on. But when it gets to this point where, like, this incredibly rare disorder is, like, everyone seems to have it, it's like, well, damn, now you just fucked it up for everybody. Like, what are we supposed to do?
It's not an incredibly rare disorder, unfortunately. It is more common than schizophrenia. Unfortunately. Because child abuse and childhood trauma is incredibly common, unfortunately. I wish it was not. But I think that a lot of people who do these types of videos don't seem to understand exactly how DID forms and why it exists in the first place. DID forms and exists to protect a child from the knowledge of what is happening to them. It's to create a disconnect between the child and the trauma or abuse that is happening to them.
now, like.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. You guys.
So next one is also by Don Stever. I'm going to skip the intro.
Me being upset my boyfriend is in my system, so I can't physically hug him or anything.
So they're dating one of their alters, supposedly.
Yes. Then the next message goes, let's see. I don't have to sneak him into our room at night to have alone time. This is alright. First of all, number one, she took self-love way out of pocket here.
Alters can and do date other alters in systems. In our system, we have a few alters who are in romantic relationships with each other. It is not an uncommon experience at all for systems to do that. Some systems, like ours, have an inner world or headspace, which is essentially a place in the mind. It's not a physical place. It can feel very real to some systems and some alters, but it's essentially a place where alters can process trauma, integrate memories, communicate with each other, things like that.
But
Yeah, for real?
okay, so the thing is, these alters are formed through trauma, and basically they're supposed to be present or be there to help you get through things, or like to, I guess, change your mind. No, fuck. How am I even supposed to explain this?
So, like, they're basically a manifestation of the trauma that they went through.
I would say that is incorrect. Alters are not a manifestation of the trauma. That I don't think she meant to word it like that. I don't know their pronouns, so I don't think they meant to word it like that. But they are not a manifestation of trauma. If that were the case, there would be a lot more inner system abuse than there already is in some systems. Alters are created to protect the child or the person from the trauma that is happening.
So it's like a way for them to cope. So, like, let's say that they were neglected, they might have an alter that is a child, so that when they're older, they feel like they can be, like, protected or, like, taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what kind of trauma.
I kind of understand what they're trying to say here. But alters can be anything. Just because a system was neglected doesn't mean that they have a child alter formed from that trauma. It's whatever the system and whatever the brain feels like it needs to survive in that moment.
Trauma would cause that. Like,
alters are more than just the trauma that created them. Alters are their own unique people with their own likes, dislikes, opinions, Alters are much, much more than just their trauma. They are their own individual people. They are still a fragmented part of what was supposed to be a person's core personality. But they are their own individuals. So just because an alter was formed from a trauma doesn't mean that they are only that trauma. That they are only defined by that.
Like, how... First of all, how does that even work? Isn't that just like...
I don't know.
Isn't
I
that
have
just
no idea.
doing it with yourself?
There's like those kids when you be like, yo, like, oh, I got a boyfriend, I got a girlfriend. Like, where? Oh, he go to another school. How you gonna say you dating your
In
own?
my head.
Like...
Very unlikely. And yeah, like they all...
Hi, why are you looking at me like that?
I don't know how old the person in that video is. But I'm going to go under the assumption that they were already a system before COVID. And COVID kind of made it so that the system had to reveal itself. So that wouldn't make them multiple people because of COVID. They were already a system.
Yeah, bro.
Sarah's like, why are you staring at me like
I'm waiting for the transition or something else. I ain't gonna lie. Yo,
It hit us with the...
I did almost become trans because of COVID though, which was actually crazy.
Yeah, I had COVID last week, and I had to resist the urge to become a man several times.
In my opinion, it is very fitting that this section is titled Transphobia. Because it seems like that's what is happening.
During that experience. It was really tough, but I made it through.
Wait.
Intact.
So that means people who are vaccinated, are they transphobic? Because they're trying not to become trans by not catching COVID?
I think that might be transphobic.
Yo! Nah, we gotta cancel everybody with a vax, yo. That's crazy.
What? Did she say f me in the ass and call me Obama?
Yo!
What kind of king?
I can't speak for our system because I don't know if it happens in our system, but that is a thing that does happen in some systems. It's not an unheard of experience.
What in the fuck?
What the hell?
So Sal from Sally Face, I'm assuming, like.
So alters who are based off of fictional media and media in general, and even real people, are entirely real and valid and noted in a lot of medical documents. It happens a lot. Because, especially when DID first forms, the child experiencing the trauma or abuse will seek out things that they find comfort in. So that could be like TV shows or movies or anything that a child would find enjoyable and comforting. And it also happens later in life with new splits. It can happen. If a system is going through a traumatic event or abuse later on in life, they can definitely split off alters based off of media or real people, depending on what they are finding comfort in and what the brain feels like it needs to survive and cope through that.
Like the game. Have you heard of that game?
No. Oh, so it's a game character or something.
Yeah, that's a video game.
Okay.
Character.
Okay, that totally makes sense then. A lot of them pick up from these games. I don't understand why they do that, bro. It's so dumb.
I understand how someone who isn't really educated on DID would feel that and think that it's like weird or too strange to be real, but it is a very real thing. And it does happen a lot. It's what the brain feels like it needs to cope and survive, because DID is formed through childhood trauma or abuse. That is how DID forms.
I think they just like the character. Like, fictives are a real thing in DID, but like, again, it doesn't manifest in people this young in the same way it does in adults. And they're not as common as they like are appearing to be on TikTok.
That, I would say, is incorrect. I don't really understand what they're saying about it manifesting different in children than adults. And especially for systems who have other types of neurodivergencies, such as autism or ADHD, who tend to hyperfixate on things, fictives are going to be more common generally. Because if a system with autism is hyperfixating on a video game or a TV show or something, and they're also experiencing trauma or abuse or trying to process through memories, anything that could be high stress or traumatic, they will most likely split off fictives from that if the brain feels like it needs that.
Talk. And also, just can we talk about the bad acting? I'm sorry.
Right?
Shawty could have tried. Like, surprise face.
How many takes you think it took for her to say like, nah, this is the one I want to post? How many takes you think it took?
She really had to reset and go, okay, no, wait 1 second, I gotta be like the other alter, and then like sat there and I was like, no, I gotta take it again. Let me go back. Okay, now it's time to switch. Like, bro.
Okay, it's going off really bad right now. So now's my chance to catch it on camera. This is what I've been dealing with.
No!
Did they just roar at me?
Right now, that tense feeling in the side of my head is really strong. And I just wish I knew if there's anything wrong.
Well,
How are we
first
feeling
of
about
all,
this?
like the feeling before you have a tick, like there's like a feeling that people generally like feel. We're just like, oh, won't bother with this anymore,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Which is like, bro, like what? Like you don't just get to use it for clout.
Piper, why did your mom remove you from the group?
Because I had to tell her something.
Okay.
Can I tell you now?
Okay.
I have DID.
No, you do not.
Yes, I do! I legit do, Steve!
You are not diagnosed.
Ever heard of self-diagnosing, Steve? You ableist Steve.
Stop calling me Steve. I am your dad. Piper, you need to stop using words you do not know the proper meaning of.
No, you will never be my father. You're just some-
Okay, so that video, this one is obviously satirical.
So I think one of the true statements here is the very heavily part.
Stop.
Yo, is that a booty? Was that crack? Yo, did you see the crack?
Have tried to help myself. I've went to multiple different therapists, to which they have told me that I do not have PTSD, I do not have depression, two things that I've already been previously diagnosed for. So really, was that my fault? Or was that their fault? And for your little friends who want to come at me, DID is not fucking rare. That 1% of the population is still millions of people. Millions of
still
people, even if
rare.
it was just 1%.
DID is not as rare as people would like to believe it is, unfortunately. Again,
Another thing I wanted to let you guys know from a medical professional, from the word of a medical professional, please don't act as if COVID is all of a sudden over just because... No. No, please. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to make myself come forth to shut that down. I have been stifled. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I haven't been around much because they're struggling to keep me down.
I don't know what the editing on that one is, but it seems, in my opinion, it seems a little bit too much.
Oh my goodness.
Tell us what happens when three systems get together.
We all switch.
So much switching.
So much switch.
This
I'm
is
Dean Winchester, and I'm drinking whiskey.
This is Low, the host. I didn't out here against.
You're telling me all of the alters are okay with those fits?
That is a pretty common experience. Switches can set off other switches in other systems. It's not unheard of.
Like, not one of them was like, can we not go out in, like, cat ears, please? Like, I'm just not vibing with it.
Yo, no drip.
And the switching, what is that? What do they mean by switching?
I'm assuming that they actually switch their alters from body to body.
Like fucking trading cards? Like,
That's not what they said, I don't think. But system hopping, in terms of what endogenics have taken it to mean, does not exist. System hopping was originally a term used in systems who have subsystems, and it meant alters who can go between subsystems within one system. System hopping, how endogenics have taken it and are using it, is not a thing. It does not exist. You can't hop from one brain to another.
Basically, I don't even know how these people, how old do they look to you?
I don't know, like 16, 17 looks like to me.
Okay, that seems to be it for that video. In terms of the DID parts, yeah. I am going to take a small, maybe 5-minute break, just to hydrate, ground a bit. There are more videos, but yeah, I will be back in a few minutes.
will carry you home. I will carry you home. When you got nowhere to go, I need you to know I will carry you home. Carry you home.
Carry you home.
Think about the times you let me go. Falling through the cracks, emotional. I struggle to see what your reasons are. Sitting in your violent silence breaks my heart. Turn the key, used to be our getaway car. Now I only wanna get away from where we are. Gotta find my way to you, even though you're next to me. No matter what I do, your heart is drifting out of reach. Head on the water, I'm swimming hard and trying to keep this alive. Gotta find my way to you.
Okay. Back. So this one is actually from a channel called Psychology in Seattle. I am not sure what to expect from this video.
A lot of you have been asking me to talk about the new trend on TikTok in which people are talking about their dissociative identity disorder symptoms or multiple personality disorder symptoms. A lot of people are thinking that these people are faking it, so let's get to it. Kim wrote in and emailed the following and summarizes it pretty well. Would you be willing to talk about the recent trend of people faking dissociative identity disorder on TikTok? DID, or dissociative identity disorder. DID awareness has increased over the past few years, and along with it, there has been a trend developing where people, mostly teenagers, are faking DID on TikTok. A year ago, I believed in DID, but after seeing all these fakers on TikTok and the arguments presented by other psychologists who don't believe it's a real disorder, I'm convinced that they are all faking.
That is a very problematic thing. I know he's not saying that. I know it's not his words. It's whoever wrote in and said this. But it's very, very problematic for someone to just simply not believe it exists. Because you are essentially saying that you don't believe that child abuse exists. And childhood trauma. Because child abuse and childhood trauma are connected to DID. Childhood trauma or abuse is essential for DID to form.
Or have been brainwashed by the same mechanisms you.
Using the word brainwashed, especially when talking about DID, is extremely insensitive to people who have gone through things like Ramkoa, which is ritual abuse, mind control, and organized abuse. Because when you use a term like brainwashing so flippantly like that, and so casually, you are making light of a very serious thing that happens to children and happens to other people very, very often.
Used by harmful psychologists during the Satanic Panic era.
So, satanic ritual abuse is a very real thing. It does happen. But saying that DID is all fake and was just made up by these psychologists during the Satanic Panic is extremely insensitive to Ramkoa victims. It's just very insensitive in general, all of it.
To implant their patients with memories and experiences.
From what I have researched, false trauma memories don't have any backing to them. There's no solid research that says, yes, you can have false traumatic memories. It's something that I believe needs to have more research put into it. But as of currently, from what I have researched, there is no scientific or medical backing to that.
These people on TikTok are pretending that they are people of color. They pretend they are fairies. They pretend they are 1,000-year-old wizards.
So alters can have different skin tones and be from different cultures and have, I think the term is pseudo-memories of their life before being part of the system. Non-human alters are very real and very common because when you are a child, when DID first forms, children, well, firstly, children aren't, they don't have the logic of an adult. Adults know that fairies and wizards and things aren't real. Like, they know that it's fantasy. Children don't necessarily know that. And when a child is going through extreme trauma or abuse, a lot of times children will be made to feel like they are less than human. Or that they wish that they were some mythical being so that they could have the strength and the power to get out of that situation. Alters can have different ages. It's the person who wrote into this person seems to be incredibly misinformed about DID.
Additionally, these people on TikTok will use fictives, usually cartoon or anime characters, as part of their other personalities.
I already spoke about fictives earlier. Fictives are very real.
Or factives, which are real people. And I feel
Yep, that happens too. Like, if you... I know for our system specifically, we have a factive of our best friend because we find her extremely comforting. She has gotten us through some extremely hard times, so our brain took what we knew about her and said, this is something that we need to cope with what we are dealing with. It is not uncommon. It is very well recognized.
I feel this is damaging, especially to the real people the factives are based on.
In most cases, factives and fictives know that they are not those people or characters or whatever. Fictives and factives are just based off of those people or characters. They aren't pretending to be that person or character. Some fictives or factives may be very attached to their source, which a source is just what they were based off of. But in most cases, from what I have seen and in our own system, fictives and factives are very aware that they are not those people or characters.
Namely, Bo Burnham has many people claiming they literally are him, and
when people are claiming that they are really someone or a character, that sounds more like, I think the term is delusional attachment, which people have used the term IRLs. But it's delusional attachments is, I believe, a psychosis thing. I'm not completely sure on if that is correct, but that is what I remember. Psychosis doesn't have anything to do with DID. Some systems do have psychosis, but DID and psychosis are not the same thing, and have different symptoms and different ways that they present.
when speaking to these people, you must address them as Bo Burnham. A few influencers have already spoken out and asked people to please stop posing as them online. Would you please be willing to speak about this trend? Yeah, so first off, dissociative identity disorder is real. It is absolutely real. I could talk about all the research. I could have guests on the show, and I have had. I had one guest on the show, and you can listen to it. It was an episode from 2019, and you can find it on our website, and you can also find it on YouTube. It's called Her Story of Erotic Transference and Dissociative Identity Disorder. It's a wonderful interview, and you really get a sense for dissociative identity disorder in that interview. But I've done other episodes. I've done some deep dives available to oldie patrons. And again, you can go to the website and search for those. And if you become a patron, you get access to those. All the trauma experts and dissociation experts that I know of absolutely will state and find that dissociative identity disorder is real. It isn't something that is completely all faked. Now, having said that, it can be faked, and it has been faked in the past, sometimes famously, like Sybil,
From what I know about Sybil, and this is speaking as someone who hasn't really looked into it, and I've heard all of this mostly secondhand, but as I've said, there's no backing to having false traumatic memories.
Book and the movie in the 70s talks about a case, or it was revealed to be a fraud. And it continues to be faked. In fact, one study found that 10% of patients claiming to have DID were indeed faking it.
10% is a very small number compared to the 90% of real DID patients. And I wonder if he does not have that study cited, so I can't look into it. Because I would want to look into it and see how many people with DID were in that study, and when that study was done, where it was, who did the study. I want to know that.
Usually by overdoing their symptoms, it was clear that they were faking it. Usually when people are faking it, they're trying to get out of a crime, they're trying to manipulate people in some way, trying to get attention or something. However, another set of studies have found that it's actually difficult to determine the difference between someone who's faking it and someone who legitimately has DID.
The thing about DID is, if someone were to fake it, it would be very difficult to try to remember all the different alters and all the different symptoms and signs and all the different, like, the body language of each alter and how they all text and type and how they all do different things. It would be incredibly difficult to remember all of the fake things that you come up with.
So we have to take that into consideration. So regarding whether or not it's a real thing or not, again, take it from me and take it from all the experts. When we talk with people, and I'll get more into it later, it's really clear that it's real. Most people, in fact, everyone that I've talked to that presents with DID, they're not getting anything out of it. In fact, they're getting a lot of negative things out of it: stigmatization, demoralization, just a lot of things that you wouldn't want. The idea that somehow faking that you had a mental disorder, somehow you have a net gain, that usually isn't the case. The other thing to think about is, how do we know any of the disorders are real? And even taking it further, how do I know emotions are real? So, for example, when someone is sad and they tell me that they're sad, how do I know they're not faking that they are sad? I can't know. I just have to take their word for it. I might see certain markers, so certain things might cohere. They might be crying. They might typically not be lying to me, or there's not a lot of evidence of them lying to me. But I'll never know. There's no blood test for sadness. I don't know. I just have to take their word for it. The same with depression. If someone suffers from major depressive disorder, I have to take their word for it. Could they fake it? Absolutely, you could fake major depressive disorder, and some people do. The same goes for dissociative identity disorder.
That is a good point. You never really know. And I think a lot of the people who do fake claim need to understand that unless they have gone to medical school, unless they are a trauma specialist or a DID specialist or a dissociation specialist, and they are treating the person that they are fake claiming, and they have treated them for a while, they know the person fairly well. Unless they have done all that, I don't think anyone has the right to fake claim anyone, because you don't have enough knowledge, and you are going off of usually stereotypes of what other people have said are fake, or you're going off of, oh, well, this is just too weird, this is too childish. It's based off of a lot of stereotypes, which can be extremely damaging.
There's no way to really know if someone has it. You can't take a blood test for it. There's no biological marker of it. But take it from me, the experts who actually will treat this, they absolutely believe that it is a real thing, as with all the other disorders in the DSM. And they also recognize that some people will fake it. And the experts that I know are pretty good at detecting when it is fake. There's usually ulterior motives that people will present, like they're trying to get out of a crime or something. And then we start actually trying to make sure that they're not lying about it. But it'd be very, very strange for a patient to come in. And the other thing I'll talk about is when people present in our office who have dissociative identity disorder, they almost never present with DID. They almost never say, I have DID. Usually they present with depression, or their relationships are falling apart, or they're suicidal, or they're having lapses in memory and they can't figure out why. And then we start the interview and we start talking about it, and then we figure out, oh, there's these different alters. A lot of people come into treatment, they don't even know the other alters exist, or one of the alters that commonly will front the personality isn't fully conscious of the fact. They kind of know there's other alters, but they don't really know. And some people are very terrified of it.
That is very true. In our case, we have been in therapy and in and out of hospitals and things for over a decade, I want to say, since we were about 12, and we are almost 24. We didn't get an accurate diagnosis of DID until we were 21, so that was almost 3 years ago now. Before that, there were signs and symptoms that were kind of hidden. Our memory has always been bad. We were doing a little bit of research, but nothing specific, and found out that depression can cause memory loss, so we thought it was just that. For a long time, we thought we had no trauma because of how DID is formed and because of how DID works. You're not supposed to know what you went through. You're not supposed to know that you have DID. But everything that we tried, all the treatments, all the therapy, all the other diagnoses that we were given, it never really added up. We were misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder when we weren't diagnosed when we were 15 because our therapist at the time had said he did not want to diagnose us with it until we were 18. But we had showed apparently a lot of the signs of BPD, which was just mostly wanting to not exist anymore. That was a lot of our issues. But everything we tried, all the therapy, it never seemed to work because we weren't getting the right treatment. We needed trauma therapy, we needed something that actually helped with our trauma that we didn't know we had. And it did take a very long time. So yes, we went into therapy just with depression and anxiety, and 12 years later, we are diagnosed with DID, and have been for almost 3 years now.
So the other thing that you talked about in your email is that it was, there's a history in our profession of occasionally we will induce things in our patients, meaning that we will influence them, brainwash them in a sense, to believe certain things like they were sexually abused. There's a lot of famous cases in the past. And that happens sometimes. And psychologists, clinicians can also induce dissociative identity disorder in a client. They wouldn't actually the patient wouldn't actually possess.
I would want to see the research on that. I really wish that he put cited works in the description or even in the pinned comment, but there's nothing to support his claims other than what he's stating.
Possess DID, but they would act like they did have it, and then the client and therapist would just brainwash themselves into believing that it's there. And that happens, but a lot of other disorders are also induced. So just because DID has been induced, just because DID has been faked, doesn't mean...
I don't personally believe that you can induce DID in someone who doesn't have it. I would need to see the research on that. Again, I really wish that he would put his sources in the description or even like a website on the screen in text where he got it from, because there's nothing that I can fact check.
They all are fake or they all are induced. And frankly, when lay people claim that it's always fake, they are harming people with actual disorders here. To say that it's all fake, it's all a conspiracy, it's all just trying to get attention, there's enough stigma out there already. We don't need to add to it. Now,
I do agree with that. People who claim that DID in general is just entirely fake are doing a lot of damage.
Can it be faked? Is it faked? Yes. But is it all fake? No. Now, it might be good if I talk about dissociation in general for a second. When we are young, when we're children, 0 to 6 or something, we have an innate mechanism available to us, apparently, to help us cope with trauma and with fear. So when you expose a 0 to 5-year-old child to chronic and intense fear through abuse or chaos or war or something, and the child is experiencing this chronic terror, sometimes at the hands of their parents, then there's this mechanism available called dissociation, and they're very...
I would disagree with that. From the research that I've seen, dissociation is a almost last resort thing. Because the first step that someone would take is fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And if none of those work, then they would go to dissociation. So I would not agree with him saying that everyone has that ability and everyone does it immediately, is what I got from that.
Various different forms of it. Some of it you kind of check out and become hazy and almost in a trance. Other times you depersonalize, and other times you develop dissociative identity disorder. All these are dissociative mechanisms that are actually useful to humans when they're very young so that they can cope with trauma that is happening. The idea goes with dissociative identity disorder is that certain alters will be protected. So like a child self will be protected. So say you're 5 years old, you're going through trauma. A child self will be pushed to the side when the trauma is happening. And another alter will step forward and take the brunt of it. And this alter sometimes is the protector, sometimes it's the traumatized one or the fragile one or whatever. And so
I know what he's trying to say here, but I don't like him saying that there's an alter that's just the traumatized one or the fragile one. Because that's just... It's kind of... It's almost dehumanizing, I want to say. Trauma holders are a very common role in systems, but trauma holders are much more than just the trauma that they hold. So saying that it's just the traumatized one or the fragile one, it's just kind of diminishing those alters to just their trauma.
This bifurcation in the personality continues to happen through various different circumstances so that each alter can cope with a specific task. It's just one of the ideas. And there are various different models of how to see it. But oftentimes when you have a set of alters and you have dissociative identity disorder that is a cause of trauma, I've never known someone with DID that wasn't significantly, chronically traumatized when they were young.
DID is always caused by severe repeated trauma. You cannot form DID without trauma. But along with trauma, you also need the inherent ability to dissociate to high levels and disorganized attachments to your primary caregivers.
Ritualistic abuse, this kind of thing. Then you, as a young person, you have this ability to cope with a very, very difficult situation. You can survive it mentally. And the problem, though, is that once you develop that mechanism of dissociation, whether it's any form of dissociation, it typically will last into adulthood when you don't need it anymore. And then something will trigger you, a minor thing, like your boss is criticizing you, and boom, your alter will switch, or something will happen dissociation-wise because your body thinks that you're about to experience a lot of abuse when it...
I understand what he's saying here, but it also doesn't take into account that alters... Anything can be a trigger. There are positive triggers, there are negative triggers, there are even neutral triggers. And there doesn't necessarily have to even be a trigger for a switch to happen. In our system and in other systems that we know, not in all systems, but in ours and some others we know, if an alter wants to front, they are kind of just free to. If there is kind of nothing else going on. I believe it was even in a Med Circle interview with Encina. I don't remember her last name, but it's on YouTube. There's a video by Med Circle with Encina, who has DID. She stated that if her alter did not want to front, then they would not front. So it depends from system to system and everything that's going on. But there can be triggered switches, that is a thing.
In fact, you're actually not going to experience that. And this can be extremely distressful for people. It is not fun. The way that people talk, when people are saying, oh, they're all faking it, I get the impression that people think that dissociative identity disorder is a fun experience. It is not a fun experience. To the point where research shows that 70% of those people diagnosed with DID have attempted or completed suicide in the past. Attempted or completed suicide. 70%. That's a lot of people. So there's a lot of pain, a lot of suffering.
That is very true. We've had many, many attempts ourselves. Most of them happened before we were diagnosed.
Suffering. And it kind of makes sense when you think about what it's like to have DID, particularly before you get treatment. You have memory problems, meaning that you'll have whole blocks, maybe even weeks, where you don't even remember what happened because a different alter was fronting. Obviously, you have trauma reactivity that is not necessarily connected to your dissociative identity disorder because you were traumatized growing up, a lot of complex trauma, self-hatred, fragmented self states. Imagine that. Imagine that part of yourself, part of who you are, is actually fragmented and not available to you right now. That's a terrifying thing before you get treatment and you start actually getting to know the alters better. Some alters actually will conflict and will push in different direction. One wants to do this thing, the other one wants to do that thing. One wants to buy a new car, the other one says we can't afford it. And then when the one who wants to buy a new car is fronting, they buy a new car, and then the other alters have to deal with crap, we just bought a new car.
That happens a lot. In our system, we have a lot of arguments, and because we do have an inner world where it feels very real, and alters can interact with each other in our system in the inner world, sometimes it will get to the point of physical fights between alters, which is very distressing for the entire system, which is why we have Mari, who is a internal conflict manager, I believe is her role. But that is why she was created. Mari was created because of all of the arguments and fighting.
Or we don't want to buy that. Now we have to take it back. So that can be extremely difficult. It's a feeling of being completely out of control and your brain just isn't working right. It's very, very distressing. And so when people act like, oh, they're just acting like they have DID and it's all fun and games, it is not. It is extremely painful, extremely distressing, to the point where a lot of people, most, think and attempt suicide. The prevalence is about somewhere between 1% and 2% in the United States, which means that it's extremely one of the more rare disorders in the DSM. Now, in therapy, in the past, what we were looking for we were trying to integrate all of the alters so that we would have one full self that.
That is a fairly outdated treatment goal. That was a very common treatment goal. But now he's referring to final fusion here, which is where all of the alters will merge into one singular alter. And then you just have one in the body the entire time. But there's also something called functional multiplicity, where you still have alters, but everyone works together. There's little to no amnesia. There's little to no PTSD symptoms. And everyone just works together and is cooperative, and you still live life with alters, but it's much, much less distressing. There's not huge gaps of time missing. Things like that.
Never switched between different alters or personalities. But we learned over time that that is extremely difficult to attain. And to try that actually can harm people. So we might try that a little bit, play around with it a little bit, but usually we switch to a different treatment goal, which is to do the following. One, we want to help the person become aware of their disorder. And we want to normalize it and destigmatize it for all of the alters. Because that's the other thing in therapy, you have to provide therapy for each of the alters. And typically there's around 10 to 20 alters, maybe 5. And each of those alters need therapy. Now, sometimes other alters will know that they're in therapy even though they're not fronting. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but the other thing you want, so you have to destigmatize, help them feel okay. It's normal. There's a good reason why they have this coping mechanisms, help them when they are in the past, and there's a way to live with it. and we can move forward. And that's usually a huge part of therapy, because they come into therapy usually in a lot of distress, a lot of fear, and a lot of confusion. The next step is we want to look at trigger awareness management, trigger awareness and management, which is pretty much the standard for all dissociative disorder treatment. In other words, we want to be able to help the person identify what triggers different involuntary switching. What sort of, situations, whether it's someone that's criticizing them, or maybe they're stressed out about paperwork or something. Whatever it is, they will become aware of it first. So, I noticed that when this happens, this alter seems to come forward, and helping them to understand that. Because sometimes you want to manage that. You want to say, well, I'm on a date right now. I don't want my 5-year-old girl self to come out right now. I want at least one of the adults to come out. And knowing what triggers the 5-year-old girl in me to come out can help me manage it better. The other thing we want to do is we want to bring in all the family and friends and say, let's all work on this together. You want to have a coming out, if you will, and say, I have dissociative identity disorder. And I think that's what TikTok actually has to do with. I think some of the people on TikTok are actually in that step. They're saying, I'm coming out and I'm sharing my experience, which is important to do because it destigmatizes, it lets people, because you need to have everyone else involved. If you're married to someone, your spouse needs to understand that you have different alters and what triggers those things.
So it does sound like he's talking about functional multiplicity here more, but more of like the steps to take to get there, if that makes sense. He is very well educated on this topic in general. There are a few things that I did comment on before, but overall, I am actually very impressed so far.
And how to communicate with each of the alters. The other thing we want to do is we want to have cooperation between the alters. We want different alters to get along and have harmony between them, because it's not always true. And then the last, most long-term thing we want to do is we want to begin the healing process, which takes a long, long time through corrective experiences. And you can hear about that in that episode on her experiences of erotic transference and dissociative identity disorder. She describes that pretty well. Now, hopefully, at the end of this process, or when we're getting into the later stages of therapy, the person with DID can accept themselves, they can love themselves, they can come out of the closet, they're getting support from others, and they're able to advocate themselves. And some people at this point will start calling themselves we. They will say, we are going out, we want a new car, that kind of thing. We as a system, okay? And some people will even name their systems because you have this group, and so you want to name it, like the Tyrion Lannister system or something.
I don't know. I don't remember if I've heard professionals actually speak about systems naming themselves, like as a group. And I think it's very, very important that he mentioned that and that he's speaking on it. Because it does make a system as a whole just feel, I don't want to say less individual because we still are individuals, but it makes us feel more like a team, if that makes sense.
Or the strawberry system. That's fine. Not everyone does it. Okay, so let's get to TikTok. I've watched a lot of the videos on TikTok, and what I can say is that it's nearly impossible to tell if an individual TikTok video about DID is real or if it's fake. These are 1-minute videos, 3-minute videos. As someone who assesses for DID, I'm here to tell you it takes a long time to understand, 1, if they have DID, and 2, if they're faking it, right? But my take on it is that, first, everyone just needs to slow down. There's a lot of people criticizing people on TikTok who are talking about their DID, and a lot of hate and almost bullying on them, and a lot of assumptions that it's fake. And I don't really know why people are doing this to those individuals. even if they are faking, really. People don't usually fake for no reason. There's usually something going on there. If someone is faking anything on TikTok, it's usually coming from a place of pain. And so for us to pile on more pain to them and ridicule them, I just don't understand why you would want to do that. It's probably not harming you that they're posting a fake video on TikTok.
A lot of people, especially with FTC says that their goal is to help the real people with the disorders, because fakers are harming the real people. To an extent, yes, but it's doing more harm than good to call out individuals that you believe to be faking, especially if you do not know them. You are not their medical provider. You're basing it off of one TikTok or even their entire TikTok profile. Because it is very vulnerable to post something like a PTSD flashback online. And some people who do are still called fake. And if you show the positives of a disorder, then they're also called fake. You cannot please people who fake claim. You just cannot. So it does do more harm than good to call out individuals. It is good to talk about how some people do fake disorders, but calling out individuals, targeting people is not okay. You can speak about people faking disorders without targeting individuals. And I think that is important to note and differentiate.
So you really want to ask yourself, why am I so worked up about this? Why am I so worked up about this very small niche thing going on TikTok? Does it have something to do with myself? Am I seeing something in myself and these other people through projection and attacking it on the outside instead of attacking it on the inside? Am I jumping on a bully bandwagon? You know, that's a thing on the internet. So I just want everyone to just take it easy, take a breath, you know. All right. The next thing is my observation of TikTok is that some seem legitimately real to me in terms of these people probably do have dissociative identity disorder. Again, it's impossible for me to tell, but from the way they're talking, they're not being sensational about it. They are, you know, talking in a mature way. They're trying to raise awareness. They're not using their alters in a sensational manner. They're not even necessarily trying to entertain. There's a lot of people on TikTok that are just like, hey, I have DID, and they're just talking about it. And I don't know if they're legit or not, but it seems like it's a good possibility that it's not faking. Now, can someone have legitimate DID on TikTok and also make a cringy video where you go, oh, that's sort of gross to me? Yeah, absolutely. You know, can someone with depression make a cringy video? Yeah. Can someone with social anxiety make a cringy video? Yes. So just because it's a cringy video where you're like, ew, this isn't the tone or this isn't the sort of art that I like to consume, that doesn't necessarily mean it's fake. It just means that you're cringing to a video. Now, on the other hand, some of the videos do seem fake to me. I can't tell for sure, but some of the markers that sort of hint at some faking going on is when people seem really thirsty for attention, and they're presenting it in a way that almost seems like it's for entertainment's sake.
I do have a bit of an issue with that. Just because someone makes an entertaining video and it happens to also be about DID does not mean that they're faking or that it is a marker of faking.
and not necessarily for raising awareness sake or for self-expression sake. I don't know. You can kind of tell.
When we had TikTok, which we don't anymore, we would post videos just whatever we wanted to post, pretty much. Most of it was like lip syncing to songs, transitions, especially with multiple alters. And it did help our communication within the system and just helped us understand each other more. So I would not say that posting a video that is for quote-unquote entertainment is a sign of faking.
Again, I'm not saying they're fake. I can't tell by just watching these videos. Now, can someone with DID make a video in which it's like, so some of the people were making videos in which they were rapidly switching. They would be recording and they'd be in one altar and then boom, they would be in another altar and then boom, another altar. And that's possible, but it's not very likely.
I also take issue with that. Rapid switching is more common than people think. Sometimes systems won't even know that it's happening. It's happened to us where we don't even realize that we are rapid switching. But it does happen, especially when a system is going through a very distressing or triggering moment. Just very dysregulated, very dissociated. No one can really stay grounded. It happens. And it's not very difficult to just pull out a phone and hit record.
It's certainly possible, and I can't know for sure. I mean, certainly there are some people like that. And some people actually have a lot of control over their switching. Usually people don't have that much control over their switching. So when I see rapid switching and doing it for entertainment value, and they're frankly young, because, you know, younger people, I don't know, I don't want to be ageist, but yeah, like I'll just say for me, when I was 16, and if I had TikTok back then, I can't imagine what kind of embarrassing things I would have created on TikTok, honestly. So I'll just say that. But the other thing I'll say is that switching can actually be very distressing for people, even after they've been in recovery for a long time. It can cause nausea. It can be very distressing. You can feel like you're passing out in a sense, or you can become disoriented for a while as you're switching. So it's not like switching is like, hey, I'm John. Hey, I'm Steve. And it's some people can do that, but usually it's not a pleasant feeling. Because just imagine you're sitting there.
In our system, most of the time switching is not fun. There is a lot of dissociation that happens with our switching usually, especially if we don't have very good communication with whoever is switching. We've gotten headaches, migraines, we've gotten very nauseous, dizzy from switching. But in some cases, especially with alters that have good communication between them, switching is fine.
You know, watching TV with your friend, and then all of a sudden you switch to another personality, another alter comes forward, and you go away. That's not a good feeling. These are different selves, different alters. So it's not like just adopting a different identity. You know, like for me, sometimes I'm a jock because I like to watch football, and I played football when I was a kid. And so sometimes when I'm around other jocks, we'll jock out. I was a theater kid as well. So sometimes, but it's all me, and I don't have. It's not a switching of complete alters. It's just a different persona that comes forward. Anyway, so the other thing that I'll say is that some of the people seem potentially delusional, psychotic, schizophrenic, etc. So it stands to reason that someone with schizophrenia, someone who's delusional, having a break from reality, that one of the delusions that they might have is that they have DID and that they.
I do take issue with. I know he has stated that he doesn't know for sure, but as a professional, I believe that you should not even be speculating on someone's mental health. I don't think that's a moral thing to do, as a medical professional especially.
Are different selves. So it seems like that's entirely possible. There's a lot of people on the internet who are posting things that are likely schizophrenic or developing schizophrenia.
That is what I have issue with. He says likely, but also saying that he doesn't know for sure, and it's all speculation, and I really don't think anyone, especially medical professionals, should be doing this.
So that's another possibility. I can't tell, obviously. Now, why would someone fake? That's a good it's a good question to ask. Why? Why would you fake this? Well, one, I think it's because we've always had a fascination with DID. I think we clearly, at least in our culture, United States, have a fascination with it. Fight Club, Tyler Durden, The United States of Terror, which is a TV show, Split, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. I think it's just interesting to think about having multiple selves inside of us. And I think that some people on TikTok are trying to capitalize on that fascination, and they're faking it and trying to, get views. Another reason why I think people might be faking DID on TikTok is because we currently have a lot more fluidity regarding identity in general. For example, with gender, we are breaking from the binary, which is a wonderful thing. But I think some people are confusing that and extending it into dissociative identity disorder. And, along those lines, it's possible that as young people are developing, particularly maybe if you've been through a lot or you're prone to certain ways of thinking, you might feel like you have different alters and different selves and might convince yourself of that, but you actually don't actually have it. So some of the people, quote unquote, faking on TikTok might actually legitimately believe that they have it, but they have magical thinking, they are confused about it, or they're trying to run away from something that is difficult for them in their lives right now. Who knows? But, there's a lot of different possibilities that I could imagine happening. Now, in conclusion, what I'll ask myself is this a good thing or not? Is this a good thing that people are posting on TikTok legitimate and possibly fake representations of dissociative identity disorder? I don't know. On one hand, it's raising public awareness, which is good. It hopefully is destigmatizing it. And those with dissociative identity disorder are given a chance to express themselves, part of their coming out process, and saying, hey, world, look at me, understand me, and know me, so that when you interact with me, you can know what's happening for me. And don't be afraid of it. Because that's another thing, is that a lot of depictions of DID in movies and TV shows often will associate it with crime. Like the M. Night Shyamalan movie, Split, that we often will associate just mental disorders with murder. And that's just not an association that makes any sense when you look at the data. So on one hand, it could be a good thing. On the other hand, it could be a bad thing, because all I'm hearing from people, and maybe it's just my cultural pocket or people emailing me, is everyone hating everyone on TikTok for talking about it because they think it's all fakery. And I am worried that there'll be a backlash against people with DID and even the concept of DID, and that people who are already experiencing destigmatization and self-hatred will hate themselves even more. I'm worried about that. So again, you can watch a video and wonder, but before you interact, really, think carefully about what you're doing. So that is my take.
That is pretty much it for that. video. Overall, I think it's a fine video. There are very good portions of it, but there are also very problematic things about it. I will most likely have all of these videos linked in the VOD description. If I remember, but I am showing the username, I'm stating who it's by. I'm pretty neutral on this video overall, I think. It seems there are problematic points in it. It is an older video, it's from 2021. Yeah. All of the rest of these videos, I think there's 5, are from a user who I have seen a lot, called Ablaze. Again, do not send any hate or harassment to anyone mentioned here. And actually, before I go through these videos, I'm going to take another small break, just maybe 5 minutes or so. Give everyone a chance to get some water, maybe eat something, stretch, whatever you need to do. And we will be back in a bit. Okay. Okay, I had to take some migraine medication because I can feel one coming on. But here we go. Let's just get
Oh,
through
that's
these.
another Discord addicted self-diagnosed white American teenager overthinking the Rain Artist cosplayer with the bright hair, massive piercings, and a typing quirk whose alters all our gay anime fictions that are self-diagnosed with tics, autism, ADHD, BPD, paralysis, and DID. Wow, that could only mean we're back in one place on the internet, our favorite place, where we can see videos like this. Having a meltdown!
And this is not the point of this stream or VOD, but there's nothing wrong with age regression.
I know I said a few weeks ago how it's dying down again. Look, I don't know what has happened this.
To switch coming on, so Tommy sat back.
I believe this was also a video used in the McLean video, which we did do a stream on, and it is a VOD. That was a very problematic video that McLean did. And it did a lot of damage, especially to the systems who were portrayed in that.
And waited. We had just pulled in at a store that we associate with trauma memories, so Tommy didn't want to go in.
It was Walmart, by the way, for anyone who's wondering right now. Tommy's trauma included his mummy. He didn't buy him the PS5.
I really don't like these types of videos because they trivialize trauma and make light of a very traumatic and, in a lot of cases, abusive experiences that have happened. I don't know if it is a Walmart, but anything could have happened at that store. I'm not going to speculate on what trauma specifically, but it is not just not being bought something. That is not.
For Christmas. So as you guys can probably imagine, that's a lot of trauma. Didn't get the PS5 for Christmas? Oh, I'm raging right now. So it's safe to say every time little Tommy here goes, no, surely not.
Starts dissociating. Josh and Matthew move closer to front. Tommy leaves front. Carmen starts fronting.
Cartman? No kidding.
Dissociation and switching can make your head drop.
Ow! South Park Cartman? I don't know. They do seem to really enjoy basing a lot of their alters on things they watch on TV, so who knows?
I already spoke about fictives, but that alter's name was Carmen, and we have never watched South Park, but we know enough about it to know that that character's name is Cartman, not Carmen.
I'm just saying, I feel like if I was to pick an alter, I feel like Cartman from South Park probably wouldn't be high up on my list on characters to pick.
Tommy was trying to trigger Josh or Matthew out. Carmen grounds herself. This is an example of how we don't always know who is going to front.
This could just be so convenient. Get a parking ticket, get a speeding ticket.
System responsibility. What one alter does, all the other alters have to take accountability for it. So no, if one alter gets a parking ticket, they can't just switch and get out of it. The body did the action that caused them to get a ticket. So the body and the system as a whole is responsible.
I'm sorry, officer. That was Cartman fronting. My bad. Won't happen again. Timeline. You want me to just scroll past that?
So from that very short clip, I'm going to assume that this alter is most likely a little, possibly a non-human alter. Just don't bully them.
Why is this just the mosquito in the middle of the night when he manages to find a way into my fucking room?
Seems like they're stimming, which is
I'm Frankie.
a normal thing.
Hello, Frankie. And what are you up to today?
Wanted to make a stimming video.
Very cool. Yeah, I know that feeling. Sometimes you're just laying on the couch and you think to yourself, I want to make a
Short one. Yay. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow.
At this point, you're probably realizing these kind of people on TikTok are almost just like soul suckers. I mean, watching this on a fucking day-to-day basis and try not to feel like my soul is leaving my body is quite hard. It generally is.
If you don't like it, you can just scroll past it. I don't understand the need for calling these people out, but that is just me. Again, do not harass or attack any of these creators. I am not stating my opinions on them as a person. I'm going off of what they are saying in the videos, correcting misinformation.
Actually quite difficult to sit there and watch this type of stuff. As funny as it is, but I know I'm losing questions like this.
What's it like to do acid when you have dissociative identity disorder?
I have a DID. I have a acid. You do the maths. Tell me your best answers in the comments.
I'm going to skip over this section just because we don't do drugs, so I cannot comment.
Really nice. It's such a good feeling. Tell me, is that a video you thought you were gonna see today? Definitely.
That does happen in systems. So before I fused, I was two alters, one named Val and one named Ash. They fused pretty recently, and Val was a sexual protector. And one of her coping skills and defense mechanisms to keep us safe was to act in very sexual ways to make sure that we weren't physically hurt. Because if we did things that the other person was expecting and wanted us to do, then we would be hurt less. That is what she learned was the best way to keep us safe in her way.
It wasn't a video I thought I was going to see today. Let's just move past that, maybe.
Oh, you think you're stable?
I am going to also skip over this clip just because the system in the video. We do not agree with their stance on something. We're not going to say what that is, but it's very not great. But please do not harass them or attack them.
I think, but yeah, she creates them every day, so here we are. That was vicious. Assault.
Listen, Lieutenant, I'm aware that your species can read minds.
We followed the system when we had TikTok. And they did a few different POV series. Like, I remember they had one where a demon possessed a DID system, and it was like a funny comedy little skit thing.
I don't recommend it. It's not a privacy thing, it's a safety thing. I'm afraid you're gonna get lost in there. No, we're a human, we're not a colony of sentient brainworms. Yeah, we have a really low split tolerance, and who we split tends to be informed by the people and the environment that we're in. So, like, working in this line, you can imagine how interesting our headmate situation is. No, this isn't a hive mind situation. We just have one body, technically one brain.
Do they have a brain? I don't really know at this point.
It was a skit, it wasn't meant to be a serious video. So that was that one. I'm gonna try and get through these quickly.
Honestly, guys, me too. My arm is paralyzed. Which means you're gonna have to hit the like button for me. And also, if we could leave a comment saying, all these TikTokers. That's.
In some systems, there are certain things that can happen that do make switches faster. Sometimes it is just doing things like that. In a lot of systems, including ours, sometimes when you close your eyes or put your head down, that can make a switch easier or happen faster, so you're not just stuck in the middle of a switch trying to do something.
Not very epic, Leafy. I actually can't believe it, if I'm being honest, guys. I am actually furious. I'm riled up now, guys. Let's just get straight into it.
That TikTok is actually very accurate to our system. That is exactly what a switch can feel like. It kind of is like you're fading in and out with another altar until the switch happens.
It always baffles me when I see people make their whole content / channel about their disorders. You know what I mean? Like,
the reason for that is awareness and also just self-expression, showing the world what it is actually like to live with that disorder. Someone with a disorder doesn't always have to be in pain or suffering or always upset. There are positives to their life, and sometimes positives about the disorder.
Make it your whole personality. Look, I'm not saying that she doesn't generally have it, but I know this person, I know that they've made it their absolute personality on YouTube. Apparently,
that is not... It may have been true when this video was posted 5 months ago, but they have put out a video since then explaining why they haven't done much DID content, and a lot of it is because of people just attacking them, especially after the McLean situation. But even when they were doing DID content a lot, it was mixed in with other things that they enjoy, like fashion.
She used to make kind of cool content from what I've seen from you guys writing in the comments, but now she literally just does DID videos, and that's it. I suppose because it gets better views. That's cool and everything.
They have stated that since they came out with their DID diagnosis, they have actually lost support, and it has not gotten them more positive attention. It's gotten them a lot of negative attention, and it's made their channel do worse.
Everything. Views do be rather sick, but that just is internally not right when you make something your whole entire identity. I mean, I feel like
it's kind of ironic that they say that because DID, dissociative identity disorder, it is kind of your entire personality because it affects every aspect of your life.
we see kind of how that goes nowadays with people making gender their whole identity. And I would argue that would even be a bit better than making your disorder ID. It's just kind of a waste.
And they divided us into 5 groups, factions, to keep the peace. The smart ones, the ones who value knowledge and logic, are an erudite.
Okay, this is wild. I don't think I've ever seen someone on the on the
That's just like a little silly, almost an alter intro, but not really. I've seen a lot of systems do that.
Fake Disorder Cringe try and make an edit in which it actually tries to make me sad. They divided us into 5 factions. The smart ones. First of all, if you have more than like 5 alters and you're making this your whole personality, you have way too much free time.
A lot of systems with a lot of alters went through extreme abuse. A lot of systems who went through things like Ramkoa, which is again ritual abuse, mind control, and organized abuse that includes things like cults and trafficking rings. A lot of systems who went through things like that will often have a lot more alters because of the extent of the trauma and abuse that they had to endure, that they survived through.
Time. Way too much free time. They have like these apps as well where they design their alters and then they kind of create characters.
There are apps to help systems with communication and keeping track of their alters, keeping track of their switches. Alters can appear very differently from each other in the headspace. Obviously, when alters switch and they front, the body does not usually change. I know in some cases, alters can have higher or lower, like BP or sugar levels, things like that, but the body does not physically change its appearance.
And they draw them. I'm kind of under the belief that they have to do that, otherwise they'll just forget about all their alters because 1, they're not real, and 2, there's just simply too many.
In a lot of larger systems, it is difficult to keep track of alters, not because the alters are fake, but because there are so many and the system is so complex. There might be subsystems which are alters with other alters, or different groups of alters that are in different areas that act as their own individual system.
I can imagine having real DID being quite dramatic and not having the choice as you front as, but these people just sit in their bedroom all day, twiddling their thumbs while drawing cool little characters.
Some systems can control switches sometimes. Our system is very lucky where we have an actual front room where in the headspace we need to go to that room in order to even have the chance of fronting, and even then we have to communicate with each other, see what's going on, and if there is a trigger that will trigger a very quick switch usually, we very often have no control over that.
And having snacks. Like, it's just not the fucking same thing. And then they just make depressing edits on TikTok and then get some sympathy points from random strangers online because that is how they get their validation in life. The cycle of faking, I'm telling you guys, is pretty fucking depressing when you actually break it down. So it's always... There's no way we're just on the second faction and you have this many characters. There's like fucking simply no way.
I believe the most alters that have been documented in a DID system, I want to say it's 2,500. And that is, I believe her name is Jenny Hayes. There are a lot of videos on YouTube where she speaks about her experience with DID and being in court with DID, facing her father who abused her, who was the cause of her developing DID. That is... I'm sure that there are other systems with more alters than that, but I know in our Google Doc that is the case that we were able to find for the most alters that are on record.
This random person on TikTok's made a deeper lore than fucking Skyrim.
Guard! Did you see that? I was a little pussy. Now, where's my purse?
Damn, bro, that backstory be pretty crazy, though.
Funnily enough, to answer this seriously, the reason I look like this is, quite frankly, because I have DID.
I'm listening.
Obviously, it's not the only reason I look like this. I mean, as a system and as individual alters, we have a huge appreciation for the art of body modification. We're also trans and do different things to reclaim our body to make it look more like ours. But it's almost like there's a correlation between people looking not normal and having DID.
I mean, I didn't say.
That is very often true. And I know that I saw a system on TikTok a long time ago speak about this. But the reason for a lot of systems looking not normal is because, and especially in things like sexual abuse, especially child sexual abuse, people want victims to look a certain way, have a certain appearance, look pretty. So changing your appearance, especially dramatically like that, is usually a deterrent for people so that they don't go through that again. And just reclaiming their body in general for themselves, saying, you liked when I looked normal, so I'm going to change my appearance drastically so that you don't like how I look anymore, so that I can detach myself from what you did to me. But that is why a lot of systems do look different.
Say it. Didn't hear it from me. He said it. That's the first DID TikTok that I've ever watched and gone, yeah, I actually agree with that. Yeah, I would say they look different from normal people. But claiming you look a certain way because of DID, I mean, I don't know about that one. Maybe
So, I've already said this a few times, but DID is caused by a severe, repeated childhood trauma, often abuse. So it does make sense that DID systems would want to separate themselves from looking normal.
yeah, I'm wrong. Who knows? Now to look at one of our favorite people on this subreddit, who I love. I quite admire, if I'm being honest. Who just kind of fascinates me.
I'm going to skip that again because of the reason I stated earlier.
In the comments, what it's like being a giant ancient snake in a puny human body. I didn't think I was going to read that sentence when I fucking woke up this morning, but I guess here we are. Yummers. Why is this me just trying to open my eyes when my mum puts on 7 fucking scented candles at once? They are mentally ill, aren't they? I think they...
Dissociative identity disorder is a mental illness. Yes. Non-human alters, especially animal alters, are very common in DID systems because often children, when they are being abused or going through a trauma, they feel like they are less than human. From what I know about basilisks in general, which is not a lot, they have fangs so they can attack and defend themselves, which for a child going through something like abuse, a child is not usually stronger than an adult, so they aren't able to defend themselves. But what can defend themselves? Something like a basilisk. Because they have fangs, they're a lot larger than a child. They might be larger than even the adult abusing them.
Yeah, I just don't think they had the things that they think that they have. But there's no way someone creates a TikTok like this and is mentally sane and thinks, yeah, this is gonna slap. Look, I remember being a kid, and I was definitely a dumb kid. There's no denying that. Some may even argue I'm still a dumb young adult, but that's pretty fucking dumb.
It's a bit ironic that he says that because DID is created when you're a child. Children aren't logical. They don't have the same thought process as adults. And in a child's mind, of course, they're going to want to be something stronger than whoever is hurting them. I think we were friends, we were mutuals with this person when we still had TikTok. They, from what I remember, were mostly a system of littles, and littles are child alters. There can be a few reasons for a system having a lot of child alters. But again, DID is created in a child's mind. It's created when a child is being abused or traumatized. So some child alters might hold a lot of that trauma from when they were that age and just got stuck in that trauma, so they are stuck at that age. And some child alters might hold what their childhood was supposed to be like. They were supposed to be protected and supposed to be able to express themselves and be loved and safe.
POV. Little space time. Do you guys have a little space time in the comments? It's just so unbelievably cringe, man. I can't wrap my head around any of this. And you probably would have thought around about now, I'd change. I don't know. Is there any positives from this?
ECG machine on, so it's monitoring my heart rate, and I haven't had a bad fainting day. See if...
Okay.
Hello, drama. Ellie? Hello, drama.
That's funny. That's good, that. I like that, yeah. Epic.
That just seems like a cosplay. I'm not sure. There was something in the caption about DID. That just seems like a cosplay. Okay. So this video was 2 months ago. And we were mutuals with this person when we had TikTok.
Hello, I am actually autistic.
You guys might want to sit down into your gaming chairs and strap in for this one.
I am actually autistic.
This is the TikToker that played victim, pretending to have DID.
Look, guys, I was picking something up and I felt a pop in her finger and it hurt and I popped a blood vessel. And now...
While giving no helpful information about the disorder and while also being self-diagnosed.
I already spoke about self-diagnosis earlier. But I would also like to say that just because a DID system is online, it does not mean that they owe you emotional labor of educating others. Some of the stuff that we do is for education, like this stream and the VOD. But for the most part, all we do is we stream, we play games, we do what we want to do that makes us feel safe and happy. And we just are living life.
Later on, she would actually come back to that, saying being self-diagnosed isn't valid.
Do not call me hun.
She bullied people offline that actually had the disorder.
You have caused more harm to our community than most of the fakers ever will.
Begged for money and eventually just showed her real colors.
So he says that they came and said that self-diagnosis wasn't valid, but showed no proof of that. And the same with asking for money, so I would be curious to see what evidence they have for that. And I'm not meaning that in a sarcastic way. I am genuinely curious to see.
And use them to help fake claim everyone else. You.
And we'll get straight into her TikTok as we continue our journey on trying to take down all these people online who like to either play up for the camera with their disorder or just straight up fake for sympathy and money. But first, equally just as important, the comment shout gang, but has now actually changed her TikTok to a friendly amalgam. Also, it's to be noted that her TikTok is private. I actually spoke to a few people that know the situation behind all of this, and apparently it's to do with the fact that people have been reporting her videos. Honestly, it's not that hard to see why. Whoa. Don't let that fool you. Alter called Bug.
No, it's Bug, and I don't have I'll show you my charms very quickly. These are charms we've had for a few days now.
Honest to God, why are half of them called Bug? This is the second one now. This is getting ridiculous. For those of you that are a little think, that's why a lot of these TikTokers like to use it, because not a lot is really known about it. Even now,
there is a lack of extensive research on DID. I will agree with that. But there are also a lot of different medical documents and research papers on the disorder. There are a lot of people with DID who have spoken out about their experiences.
now I'm sure they're making new discoveries on how it actually happens and on how it actually works. But a quick Google search can at least fill you in on some of the details, as this is what it says online about the disorder, stating, overview, what is dissociated identity disorder, otherwise known as DID? Dissociated identity disorder, DID, is a mental health condition. If you are living with DID, it means that you have two or more separated identities. These personalities control your behavior at different times. Each identity has its own personal history, traits, likes and dislikes. DID can lead to gaps in memory and hallucinations, believing something is real when it isn't. Dissociated identity disorder used to be called multiple personality disorder, split personality disorder, and then stating what it's actually like to live with the disorder. There are ways to make living with DID easier. A strong support system can make living.
Okay, so we finished Unicorn Act. It was very fun. We might play a little more.
Yes, thank you, Bug. I'll take it from here, thank you. But there's a few things to be said in her videos. Now, again, I've spoken to someone that actually has DID. I actually sat down one evening to have a talk with Eva, in which I really appreciated that because it felt like I got then.
Eva, I'm not going to say too much on Eva, but I will say that I don't know if they have DID or not, and I'm not going to speculate. But they are the type of system who agreed with the McLean video saying that DID should also always be suffering, that you shouldn't have fun with it. And Eva has attacked multiple people with DID and harassed them. I'm not going to get into any more of it, but that is...
Cameron?
I don't know about you guys. Granted, I may have been a pretty dumb 4-year-old, but I don't think Albert Einstein 4-year-old could have even figured out TikTok. Not Juniper, though.
So, just because an alter is a certain age doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity to understand adult concepts. So, some child alters do have more of a childlike mental state and mental capacity. But there are also child alters who can understand adult concepts and adult words and things like that. So a child alter would, in some cases, be able to figure out an app like TikTok.
Seems to be a natural at it. Could this be It's because she craves attention? Probably so. Now, I'm not the only one calling her out either, as people in the past have called her out. Again, further along talking with Eva, I found out that this TikToker actually started sending horrible messages to her. So let's have a little recap, shall we? Here we have a TikToker who...
It doesn't seem like they actually show any of the messages, which is a little bit... I don't know Juniper and their system personally or anything. We haven't seen videos from them in a while. But I will say I do not agree with them going to other people's followers and sending them messages. I don't know what racial slur is in this comment, especially because there are no slurs against white people.
Ever follow us, speak on us, or post our face anywhere, Sebastian? Oh, look, another white person ready to toss themselves on the fire of listen, gonna grab some marshmallows at this point. Guess who is back on their system hating?
I do think that because Eva has harassed the system in the past, and others, the people that were harassed by Eva have every right to speak up about that.
Now, I'm sure you guys are well aware of that. Probably too many, if I'm being perfectly honest. But one thing that always pops up is the second you disagree with them, they all turn on you and get angry. Clearly, TikTok saying this.
If you were just gonna throw fellow disabled people under the bus, I hope the bus backs over you.
I don't know what the context is.
You don't get to say, oh, don't drag me into this because you are making this your personality. No, they're establishing boundaries and talking about their life. And FYI, dissociative identity disorder does kind of impact all aspects of our life and personality. So, wow, the internalized...
I don't personally see anything wrong with those. With what they're saying here.
We post these videos onto a public platform like TikTok. I know her page is now.
Just because someone posts a public video does not mean that that person cannot set boundaries, and those boundaries should be respected, even though it is a public video on a public platform. People have every right to set boundaries.
I see a lot of bigs talking on behalf of the littles about this, and I don't see any littles talking about it. And if littles are supposed to be making very big decisions, then why aren't littles talking about it? You know what I mean?
Not really, no.
So that is in reference to a... There has been some discourse about some systems saying that littles can consent to things that children cannot consent to. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So straight from the get-go, I just find this so hard to follow along. If you generally think you're 4 years old, how could you even think that? Let alone to set up the camera to...
Just because an alter is 4 years old does not mean that they can't understand adult concepts and words and ideas and things like that. Littles are children and should be treated as children, but littles understand a lot of things that normal children might not. It's just how DID works.
Then have this very serious conversation. It just doesn't make any sense. But oh, it gets a hell of a lot worse than even that.
Does that make sense? Okay, I'm talking about it now, and maybe the big ones won't delete this. But listen, there's rules for kids. And then when you're in the system, sometimes not all of those rules work the same, right? Like, we have a big adult body, so perhaps, sometimes kids will cuss. Or I drive. I know how to drive and pay bills.
Which again is throwing me even more off.
I do agree that littles should not be doing things like driving just for safety reasons. But that's just my own personal opinion on it. I'm not saying what other systems should do. I'm just saying that we can't drive, but even if we did, we would not let a little drive, but that's just us.
When I've spoken to people with actual DID as well, they don't always know that they are in a big body, and if you show them in a mirror, it generally freaks them out. But here, it seems like she's managed to keep all of her memories and talks about how to pay bills, and that she is fully aware of the fact that she's in a big person's.
Different alters will have different awareness of the body. If you are extremely depersonalized, then you might look in a mirror and be genuinely shocked at seeing the body's face because it's not the face that you expect to see. Things like that. Most of us in the system don't like looking in the mirror because we don't look like the body. And for some of us, it is genuinely distressing. But for others who are more disconnected from the body in general, it doesn't bother them as much. It depends on the system and the alter. All systems are going to be different. I'm just going to move on to the next video because this title alters can't die. And I was going to go through this video and one more, but my voice is shot and we need to eat. And this stream has been going on for 3 hours with 2 breaks and I'm exhausted. We have an early date tomorrow. But I'm going to leave it with this. If any of the people who created these videos sees this video, this is not meant to be an attack. This is just my opinion as someone in a diagnosed DID system. I will be linking the Google Doc in the description box on the VOD. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions or would like to discuss things further. I'm completely open to communication. My goal is not to attack or harass or insult anyone, and I don't believe I did that in this video, but I apologize if it came across that way. My goal with this video is to strictly educate, to get more information out there, to correct some of the misinformation. I think that covers it. But yes, if you have any questions about anything I said in this video, or any questions for me personally, or just in general, everyone is welcome to comment, and I will try and get back to everyone. And I think that is it. So thank you everyone for being here and watching, and if you stuck around for this entire stream, thank you. I don't know how you've done it, because this was a very long and exhausting and information-filled stream. So I hope everyone is taking care of themselves, and we'll see you later.